Do you spend hours in your head thinking about something that happened, could have happened, or might happen? Do you ask others what to do so you don't make a mistake? Welcome to the Playing It Safe podcast. I am Dr. Z, your host. I am a clinical psychologist, an author, and a person that is super passionate about sharing with you science-based skills to overcome any type of fear-based struggles. Who doesn't experience fear? Who doesn't play it safe? In this show, we will discuss how fear-based reactions happen in day-to-day life, how playing it safe behaviors look like, sound like, and feel like, how you can put into action solid tips from behavioral science to get unstuck from worries, fears, obsessions, and anxieties, and how you can start doing what works, what matters, and what you care about. Behavioral science doesn't have to be boring. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. When was the last time you had a social mishap in a conversation? Do you remember how it feels to say the wrong thing at the wrong time? Hi guys, this is Dr. Z. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the podcast. If you are a shy person or are struggling with social anxiety or social perfectionism, it's quite likely that you are holding on to the beliefs that you must sound smart, interesting, or funny. That there should never be an awkward silence in a conversation. That you shouldn't stumble over words. That you should never mispronounce a word. One way to manage those thoughts and the anxiety that comes with them is by avoiding social situations. Rehearsing over and over what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, or only talking to people you feel comfortable with, or comparing your social performance with others' social performance. When you are unable to meet this perfectionistic social standard, then you may feel that you have failed. But the truth is that none of us can live up to this perfectionistic social standard or have the perfect social performance. When we learn to accept that having a silence in a conversation, that stumbling over words or mispronouncing words are perfectly normal human experiences, then we are more equipped to relate to our fears of social performance in a more effective way. Over the years, I have worked with many children, teens, and adults who are very concerned about their social performance. A lot of them are hoping for the day when they stop feeling anxious so they can do things that are important to them. In some way, it's like they are waiting to have a social conversation that is anxiety-free. The challenge is that if you are hoping to approach social situations with zero anxiety, we may have to wait that for a long time. Because one of the things that we know about anxiety is that our anxious thoughts, our anxious feelings come with us wherever we go. Today, I interview Julian McNally, an ACT therapist from Australia. In this conversation with Julian, we discuss acceptance and commitment skills for anxiety related to social situations. You will hear us talking about our personal values, how to practice commitment, how to manage negativity biases in social situations, how to deal with comparison thoughts, what is context sensitivity, and how you can stop playing it safe so quickly when dealing with social anxiety or when struggling with fears about your social performance. I really hope you find this episode helpful, and make sure to go to the website www.thisisdrz.com so you can take a look at the show notes of it. I wish you a great day and see you next week. Bye-bye. So perhaps if it's okay, I can ask you about one of those times in which you were playing safe in your life. Was there any time when you found yourself either stuck on your head or doing things to make sure you don't experience discomfort?
Yeah, it's something I've thought about since you invited me to be on the podcast, Patricia. By the way, here's something for you and I here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of declaring this as a commitment. So we're doing this as one of a series of your podcasts. So my commitment is I would like to make this the most interesting, the most informative, basically the best interview you've had in the series.
Ah, lovely. I welcome that. I welcome.
And I'm making that commitment, and I'm inviting you to make that commitment too, because it's kind of like, I was talking before about outcome measures and monitoring progress with clients. And I always thought when I went into psychology, well, why would you not want to improve every possible way that you could? So the better you are as a clinician, the more you can help people. And that's also because I came from, I wouldn't say I came from, but I had a background of working in a whole range of different jobs before I came into psychology. One of them was sales. And the thing in sales is it's like, if you're not producing, you're not performing. So it doesn't matter, how many prospects you saw or whatever. If you're not converting those conversations into sales, you're just not performing well enough. And, at the lower end, you lose your job. At the top end, you get rewarded really well. And I kind of felt like, well, I think definitely in this field of psychology, I've got that duty to clients to do the best I possibly can. So that's why I'm making that commitment to you. I want to make this the most interesting, fascinating version of your podcast it can be.
Julian, I just have to say that I do welcome that. And I want to also join you in that commitment to do my best to make this a juicy and helpful conversation for people listening to us. So Thank you for putting that on the table. I love it. I love it.
So, times when I played it safe. Okay, this you probably saw me gulp then, because like it's always like, oh, can I not face that? Can I just kind of hide away from that one?
Oh, we all do that, right?
Yeah. It's like, so. Oh, look, the more recent ones would be things like. So I have a problem with procrastination, like many people, and sometimes when I look at, okay, why are you procrastinating? It's like, you're afraid you'll fail. You're afraid that, these would be the main ones. You're afraid that, you're afraid that you won't do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one in there. Yeah, you're afraid of being embarrassed, but that's not as big a one as it used to be. Oh, you're afraid it'll be hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So like when my bookkeeper says, we need to reconcile these receipts or whatever, I tend to suddenly get interested in cleaning the office or, writing these notes. I've been avoiding writing all and it's kind of like, because I know there's a lot of hard work involved in that. And of course, it seems like wait, you're afraid of looking at some receipts? That's like the easiest thing in the world for some people. But for me, it feels like, oh, that's a real challenge.
Mm-hmm.
There was something else I was going to bring up, though, about earlier in life.
Can I ask a little bit
sure.
question?
Yeah.
So if I were next to you and the bookkeeper says, we have to do this stuff with the receipts, and then suddenly your mind says, I have to clean the office right now, I have to do my notes. What happens under your skin? What's the experience under your skin? It moves you in a different path.
Yeah, I find that a hard question to answer, although I can feel a little bit of it now. It's like there's this sort of rising tension, like from around my solar plexus coming up into my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that'll go away if I clean the office.
Well, yes, that's the tricky part of these plain it safe moves or safety behaviors. They work right away. right? And our
Mm, mm.
discomfort goes away.
Well, but it doesn't, does it? Because like that's the thing. It's like I don't love cleaning the office. It's like people say about writing a book. Everyone wants to have a book written. Nobody wants to actually sit down and write. And everybody wants a clean office. Nobody wants to actually clean the office. Like I actually enjoy washing the dishes. But
Not my thing.
but it's like, yeah, you're doing this thing that you don't enjoy in order to avoid doing this other thing that you enjoy even less. So you're not enjoying yourself now. You're just not enjoying yourself as little as you would be if you were doing the thing that you don't enjoy.
That's true. That is true. It's really like we're adding extra discomfort and extra pain into our life.
Yeah, it feels like that. And then, of course, after, even after you've cleaned the office, it's like you don't really get to savor that, oh, wow, what a beautiful ordered office this is, because now you've got to find some other avoidance activity. And, you do that for a couple more days, and then the bookkeeper says, Julian, where are those receipts that you were supposed to get for me? And it's like, oh, no, if I delay her any longer, then I'll end up getting a fine from the tax department. So it's sure not satisfying.
Yeah, Julian, thank you for sharing that, because I think you are describing how one avoidant behavior leads to another one and leads to another one. And even though they may work in the short term, then we have this pattern that is being developed, a pattern that's getting developed.
No, that's a really great point, Patricia, because if I think about many of the clients I've seen, and I'm sure it's the same for you, the thing that they come in, or the thing that's going on that they come in with today, it didn't just happen yesterday. It's like there's been that pattern that you're describing of, so what's the big deal about avoiding that? And you dig a bit deeper and you find something in there, and maybe it goes back to childhood, but maybe it just goes back, maybe not so far, like adolescence, or something happened in a job like 3 or 4 jobs ago, and now they're not taking any risks. Like, I'm never going to go in management again because at this time I had a really difficult employee to work with, and I got shown up in front of everybody, and and just thinking of some of the experiences my clients have been through.
That's true. It's very interesting when we look at how these patterns of avoidance get developed, right? And there are so many sources. There are so many sources. Now, if I can ask a little bit more, we both are ACT practitioners. We both love acceptance and commitment therapy, or acceptance and commitment training. How do you see the application of ACT for procrastination, or when there is this urge to postpone events or to postpone activities because we're afraid of making mistakes, or we're afraid of being a failure, or we're afraid of the hard work that comes if we take that task?
Yeah. So look, I like telling stories in therapy.
Lot.
Because I think people learn from stories. So I'm going to tell a story on our mutual friend, Russ Harris. So, Russ is a published, successful author.
Yes.
I met him back in 2004 somehow, like I, the year before, bought the ACT book, read it, and went, wow, this is kind of what I've been trying to practice, but it's got values added in, and that's the thing I was looking for. So I'll just say a little bit about how that came into being. Like I said before, my training was in counseling psychology, so basically, humanistic Rogerian psychology. I then got interested in solution-oriented psychology because it looked to me like, fix people in 1 session or 6 sessions or something really quick. And I thought quicker is better, right? And I made a bit of a fault of rushing people out the door, and then people would come back and I'd go, well, I thought I fixed you. why are
you back?
Why are you back? So I've moderated that over the years and kind of accept that, for some people, you're like the dentist, you need to come back every 6 months. For some clients, it's like they only need you for that brief episode. And for other people, it's like, I have people that have been with me 12 years or whatever. It's like virtually a lifelong relationship.
Yeah.
And they've improved from where they were when I first saw them. But there's still, there are still challenges that show up. And so I sort of say in that way, it's like seeing your physiotherapist or your osteopath. You kind of, you get tweaks and injuries and you just need an adjustment every now and again. So anyway, so back to ACT. Oh, by the way, this is how I tell stories. I go all over the place, but I usually come
Julian, I am smiling as I listen to you because I am a storyteller myself and I like background, right? I just like to get the background because that's the context to the story, right? And
yeah.
my friends sometimes used to joke with me and they say, Patricia, where did you get coffee? And I will say, when I woke up this morning, I look at the sky, and then I felt this. And then my friends have to say, Patricia, what did you get coffee? Okay, fine, Starbucks. So please, I welcome to the stories and I welcome the context and the background. It's what gives you the story. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, we kind of need to sort of feel like we're there in the story. So anyway, Russ started this sort of peer supervision group in Melbourne, basically by emailing people and saying, hey, it would be good if we had a group where we got to talk about cases or practice techniques or whatever. And
cool.
Katie Wyman, who I mentioned, was one of the first people at that as well. Anyway, so I knew him from 2004, and then we went to the first. No, maybe he'd already written it by then. But he was writing a book, which ended up becoming The Happiness Trap.
Okay.
And he was concerned because somebody else's sort of book for the general public on ACT was coming out at the same time. Someone with a lot more, influence and reputation than him. And he said, and he'd already sent me a chapter to proofread and whatever, just asking comments. And he said, I kind of feel like, what's the point now? And he said something about it getting published. And I said, oh, well, have you written a book before? Like I was encouraging him because I could see he had a different style of writing. And I thought, well, the more of these kind of books we have out, the better. Boy, have we got them now. But he said, yeah, I tried to get a book published a few years ago. Oh, okay. So a book? And he said, oh, no, I've actually written 6 or 7. And I didn't say this to him at the time. I've told him since, but I thought, oh my God, you've written 7 books and none of them have gotten published. The universe is trying to tell you something. Thankfully, I kept my mouth shut and instead said the encouraging thing, because I was thinking from my frame, which is like, if I'm not getting a yes after 3 or 4 goes, I'm kind of like, I'm going to give up. It's too hard, which is why I haven't published a book. But the other story, and this is another book. This is about 3 or 4 years later. We have a world famous comedy festival in Melbourne every April, March, April. And Russ had actually, when he was working as a GP, he had done a stand-up comedy show. Now, I didn't know that the reason he did that was to challenge his own anxiety. Anyway, he wrote this book. It's a fictional book. I can't remember the name, but I bought it, read it, and went to the launch. So, he's having a launch during the comedy festival. And, so of course, 60% of the crowd were his friends, like I saw other psychologists I knew there and other friends of Russ and so on. And, the few people who went, oh, this is a comedy festival, and just probably wandered in or thought, oh, it's interesting. A doctor's written it was a comedic novel and it was quite funny. Wish I could remember the name of it. Maybe you can put it in the show notes. Anyway, So he said, "Look, I did actually do a little bit of work as a stand-up comedian, so I'll give you a taste of that." And you've probably seen Russ at the Follies at ACBS things.
Yes.
He is very funny.
He
And
laughs you. He sounds like a natural comedian.
yeah, exactly.
All
Yeah.
right.
And so, and look, something about me, like much earlier when I was a teenager, I wanted to be an actor, and I actually got into
Oh,
Australia's top acting school. And there's a not playing it safe story in that, which I'll tell if we get time. But one of the things that happened through that, through that experience of acting training and um, well, I won't even say I worked as an actor. I got one day's work as an actor before I left and went into psychology. But I learned to overcome stage fright.
mm-hmm.
And when I say overcome, I mean, you can put me, no script, in front of a group of 1,000 people, say, talk about this. And yeah, I'll feel nerves and butterflies in my stomach. And the more time I have to prepare, the more that will be.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I can do that. I'm not afraid of falling flat on my face. And again, if we have time, I'll talk about, there's an exercise we did in acting school that,
Oh, wow.
kind of killed that pretty much for good. But anyway, Russ tells his thing, the audience is in stitches. And then afterwards he says, something about, I'm going to be signing books. And I was in the second or third row. So I was like about the sixth person behind with my copy of the book for Russ to sign. Of course, I wanted to congratulate him because it had all gone so well. And I shook his hand, and his hand was wet with sweat.
Yes. Yeah.
And I went away and was shocked and thought, how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
If I felt that nervous doing this, and this is in front of, like an audience that is basically with you, there's no disapproval or judgment, or, tiny bits, because we're all judging all the time.
We are.
But
We are.
it's like, this is about as safe as it gets. And it's like, wow, this guy fights don't know if he fights this fear. I think, being Russ, he embraces the fear and goes, yep, there you are, my friend. You're coming on the stage with me.
That's right.
And it's there in his body. And it's like, wow, I find that inspiring. I'm actually getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Wow. You know, I started a podcast in the midst of COVID, and I didn't know how it was going to be, or I didn't know anything, but I interviewed Russ. This is 2021. We are friends and we are colleagues. We have a close relationship. And one of the things he said, and this is in the podcast, he asked me, can you see my hands? Can you look at my hands?
Oh, I listened to that episode. Yes.
It was one of
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah. Yeah. People should go back and listen to that one. It's very,
But he's talking about what you are describing. Here is a guy extremely successful, a great teacher. He does put himself out there. But when he asked me, can you look at my hands? I said, they look a little bit red. And he said, do you see how shiny they look? And then he brings them closer to the camera. And then I can see. And he said, even in a close relationship, this is
wow.
my
Yeah.
friend, but you can see my fear kicking in. And that's to share that, yeah, it's incredible that when we do what we care about, our fears come with us. They're just next
Oh,
to us.
yeah. Oh, Patricia, that is so right, that our fears come with us when we do what we care about. Yeah. Yeah, that's helping me see. One of the things I was um gonna share with you is, an area where I play it safe sometimes is, like the prospect of expanding my practice. So there's a part of me that would like to expand the practice, but then my mind jumps in with, so I have this, a lot of people would say it's a successful practice. There's 9 practitioners and,
Really well
um,
established.
yeah. So we've got a good reputation and so on. And I think people enjoy working there, which to me is the big thing. I wanted to form a community of ACT practitioners that would enjoy each other's company. And we do social events, and I would be biased, but I think people really do enjoy themselves and each other's company. But like this idea of expanding, yeah, I'd like to get to, say, some size like, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 50 or 60 practitioners, not much bigger than that, because then it's like, seriously, are there that many good practitioners out there? Well, I'd like to find out. But the thing that has me stop, you know, the thoughts that have me stop are things, well, like that, like, oh, maybe there aren't any good practitioners. Something like 10,000 psychologists in Melbourne. Maybe I'll end up with somebody really difficult. They'll be hard to work with, you know, and then I won't enjoy coming. Do you see what I mean? I'm kind of setting up an imagery of it failing before I even start.
Yeah.
And in the same way, sorry, go on.
No, it's quickly the mind will anticipate some potential negative outcome, right?
Yeah.
Just quickly go there.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, you know, I noticed, is it, hang on, I got to get the name right. Amy, I've forgotten the middle surname, Barrett, the neuroscientist who talks about the brain being a prediction machine.
Oh, there is Lisa Feldman also.
Lisa Feldman, right?
Right.
Right. I was getting mixed up with a Supreme Court judge. It's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, is it Lisa Feldman Barrett?
Yes, it's Lisa Feldman Barrett. And one of her first book was What Emotions Are Made Of, when she talks about our minds being these predicting machines, and we only learn when we're predicting gets disproved.
Yeah, well, I hadn't read, well, I think I've read her very small book, the 7 something or others. Can't remember the name. But I was kind of reading it going, that's what I've been telling my clients for years, because like back in 2010, when I started working with, you know, the matrix, that diagram that Benji Schoendorf and, the guy who works at the, or worked at the Veterans Affairs at
Mark Webster, maybe?
Mark Webster and yeah, the other guy.
Kevin
was
Polk.
Annoying me. Kevin Polk, that's right. Yeah.
It's hard to remember all those names.
There are so many names in ACT, and it's 5:30 in the morning here. And
oh my goodness! No,
that's all right. But one of the things I included in that was talking about your mind, and your mind does 3 things. It compares, it predicts, it evaluates. This is kind of like a loop that it goes through to solve problems. So it compares, you know, something like, I'm thirsty and I don't want to be thirsty. How do I close that gap? And so then your brain sets to work making predictions about, well, I could go down the hill and find a river maybe, or I could go to the tap and get a glass of water, or whatever. And then you you execute that action, and then you evaluate it. Okay, is the gap closed? How do I feel? And that's when you know you've succeeded. And if you haven't succeeded, you go back through the loop again.
That's right.
So yeah, this idea of prediction. Now, I'm trying to remember how we got onto that. Oh, that's right. Yes. So there's my brain predicting all the things that could go wrong with me taking a risk.
Yeah. How do you handle that? You're considering expanding your practice. You have already a very beautiful, well-established practice, and there is a sense of community that you have built up. And then you're thinking, should I expand? And then the mind tells you, well, what if I hire someone that maybe is not as competent? Or what if it's difficult to manage this large number of psychologists?
Yeah.
That.
Okay. Well, again, another story about me and my development as a person. When I was a kid, I was very bright.
You're still bright, really.
But I've become less intelligent.
It's not than mine.
Thank you for that reminder, Patricia. So what happened was my older brother, who's 18 months older, went off to school. So I was like 4 or whatever. And he came home and he brought back a book and he showed it to me. And he showed me the words and whatever. And then I took that book and then I picked up another book and then I picked up another book and I was reading books. And my parents came in one day and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm reading." He said, "How can you read? You don't go to school." Anyway, I was really bright. And
Oh, wow.
the thing is, from that time, my parents noticed it and kind of celebrated it, which is lovely, great. But the thing I got from it was, and especially, here's the thing that would happen. I would read about something, something to, like, this is by the time I'm 6, 7, something to do with science, whatever, like why is the sky blue or how are clouds made of them? And then I'd tell them about it, especially in front of other people. And they would say, "He is amazing. He's so smart. And how does he know that?" That was always the question. Like, how does he know that? Who taught him?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, nobody taught me. I taught myself. Now,
I love
how
it.
this becomes a fault later in life is I'm walking through Bunnings, which is like a big hardware chain we have here, with my son. He was then about 18, 19. And we're looking for something we need, like a tool or a screw or whatever. And I'm walking up and down the aisles and he says, "Oh, there's one of the staff. Why don't you ask them?" And I said, "Oh, they never know." And, there's a little bit of truth to that they're often casual or they specialize in one area they don't know. But it's that thing of me as a kid, I have to find out on my own. So what's the thing I don't do as an adult? I don't ask for help. And in fact, I'm almost insulted when people offer to help. It's like, no, I can do it, sort of pride myself on self-sufficiency. So now the interesting thing about this practice thing is I've just actually this week taken on a business coach who has successfully grown her own practice, a couple of practices, and teaches other people how to do it. It's sort of like that, to a lot of people, that would not be going out of playing it safe. But to me, that's like, oh, she's going to find out. And now my success will be partly down to her. And, it's always like this small-minded, it's got to be mine. I've got to be the smartest person kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
terrible. So I wish I could say that, I do this ACT practice of being, mindful and accepting the feelings as they show up and then stepping into the goal that I set for myself. But
I appreciate the realness of what you're sharing. I think there is a lot to say. One of the things that was coming to my mind is how often, if not always, our minds try to use the same way of thinking across all contexts, right? We were talking
oh boy,
about how if something has worked for us as kids, or teenagers, or particular skill, if you want, we try to do the same across settings. And it's hard to realize that new settings require sometimes new skills or different approaches or different mindset. So I think there's a little bit that. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, I will very much appreciate it if you will subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. And if you're feeling extra generous, I welcome a review on Apple Podcasts. Show notes of this episode are in the website playingitsafe.zone. Make sure to subscribe to my newsletter so you can receive more tips to stop all types of unworkable playing it safe actions. See you soon!